Welcome, everyone. It's really wonderful to see here and feel all the happy energy of everyone catching up and sharing with each other this evening. When I first started reading Akaya's book, Leading with Joy, the first thing it did is it really reminded me of all the values I learned from my family. Somehow it made a really strong connection with my roots. My mother, who was very dear to me, passed away 26 years ago, but from a young age, she always taught me not to get pulled down by hatred and negativity, to focus on the goodness, love, and joy that we can see in the people and the world around us. She would always tell me it might be really difficult at times, but keep searching until you find it. Let goodness be your guiding light. And then my grandfather, who immigrated to the U.S. when he was a young boy, was also a treasure. He lived with us from the time I was in middle school, and he was such a joy. He would walk around with a sketch pad, always designing or thinking of new things. He had a patent, and he was always finding ways to make something better, and everything was like a new, exciting opportunity, a challenge to tackle or a new design thing. So it was such a joy. And I now want to also thank the incredible generosity, like Rosie said, because everything that LIFRC does is because of all the incredible big hearts and generosity of everyone in this room tonight. LIFRC, well, all of the things, the guiding principles in Akaya's book, are what things that guide us in helping us transform our island. And that's why I'm so grateful to the book, and it helps me learn in ways that we can grow even stronger. What does that look like? How do we do this? LIFRC is a collective of many talented leaders with a dream of a better future for everyone. That's our driving force with all of this work. This requires us to imagine something that we often don't know what that is. It's so funny because I know in our world there's a lot of talk about strategic planning and all those things that are so important, but you also just have to have this faith and kind of take a leap that something out there is better, and we don't know what it is, and more importantly, we don't always know how we're going to get there. The key, though, is always being rooted in community, listening, learning, recognizing and honoring the many, many talents of everyone in this room, in our community, valuing and caring for each and every person, finding new innovative solutions, and creating equitable systems together. That is what creates lasting change. As we always have to remember that we need to be present, believe in each other. I find so much in our work, people don't have someone who believes in them. Rosie and I were just talking about that. It's so important that that's a foundation of everything we do, and that we do everything together. I want to share a little bit of what this looks like at LIFRC. I think an important part of Lopez is it always starts with the deep love for how special this island is to all of us. And one of that very special things is how much people really care about each other and do a lot to take care of each other. A lot of love is shared here on this island. Sort of on the flip side of that is we know that we have one of the highest cost of living in our state, and usually we're right down at the bottom in terms of the lowest wages in the state. The 22 census data revealed that 31% of our island is at or below 200% of the poverty level, and it was even I was shocked to see that it's 57% for 400% of the poverty level, because poverty, that 400% of poverty level sounds like a big number, but it's not. The annual income is quite low, and San Juan County is predicting that low-income households, the percentage is only going to grow over time. So LIFRC believes that we always need to start with a foundation of care and security. LIFRC serves over 1,500 community members every year with some very talented staff and volunteers. Someone dealing with some very serious health issues just yesterday thanked me, saying the LIFRC team always goes the extra mile, providing love and care to me every time. So I thought I would highlight some important programs that show how we support this diverse community. A big one is the Lopez Food Share, the food bank. We purchase food from farms and food businesses, and we offer prepared meals thanks to Christine Langley and the Locavores, who is always making meals to make sure that households without kitchens get the food that they need. I was in this grocery store about 6 months ago, and the person in front of me, someone that I've known for a while, turned to me and said, you know, I really want to thank you. The food share has made such a big difference. He says, I have been skipping meals for over 10 years on a regular basis. And I just paused for a moment and think, oh my gosh, I've known this person for so long, and yet I had no idea until like the food share is there, and then suddenly he's feeling more comfortable, like he knows he's going to have a meal every day. Others regularly tell us medical bills are the other big thing that sort of derails people, and how the food share makes a huge difference. And as everyone here knows tonight, food is such a big treasured thing on Lopez, and that's why many of us are here and live here. So it's an important thing. We do so many other things: rent, utility, and transportation system. There's numerous mental health and recovery supports. We have a lot of youth engagement programs with multiple mentoring and leadership programs I'm going to share a little bit more about in a minute. And then also early learning and reading intervention and youth learning programs. I always love this one quote. Imagine the joy of a young child when they say to their reading coach, they go, "Psst, I have to tell you a secret. I used to hate reading, but now I love it." So that quote, I can never hear it enough, because it just, Katie, who does our reading programs, is amazing. And she was just talking about how they had kids who were not able to read at all, and now they're reading chapter books, and what a huge celebration that is with their coach. I've always believed, my grandfather in particular was a great storyteller, that sharing stories is such a powerful way for us to connect and learn together. There are so many important stories, and what I would love is, I really love to meet with all of you, and I know I need to make even more time to do that, but would like to put out an open invitation for people to share more. So if you have questions or there's things you want to learn, and I just love learning from all of you too, so I'd love to have tea or coffee sometime with people. We know that supporting diverse leaders is a really integral next step and part of everything that LIFRC does. We have Orgullo Pride, Latin Pride, formerly called La Cima. Boy, what a powerhouse group of youth Latinx leaders. So far, they've provided CPR classes in Spanish to 40 community members. Now 3 of those teens and 3 of our Spanish-speaking community health workers have become certified bilingual trainers, so they're offering the trainings in Spanish and English. All these things have such a huge impact on our community, and 2 of those teens have been named in like the top 40 Latin uprising young adults leaders in the nation. So, yeah. Align advocates on Lopez Gathering for Neurodiversity. They're voices and vision leaders who've been providing all sorts of training to the preschool, to the LIFRC staff, to the school staff, so that we can all learn better ways to have better structured learning environments. They launched a 6-week pilot camp which has evolved into a buildability camp for students with disability this summer. And my favorite thing is, one day this summer, one of the young girls in that camp, she's jumping up and down. She goes, "I love it. It's fun. I get to play. It's like being with family." So all these moments are just so precious in terms of all the things. And then Indigenous celebration, it grew from 10 tribal members 3 years ago to this year there was over 100 tribal members representing 15 sovereign nations. But the magical part of it is that there are also 27 of our youth in the youth engagement programs that were really actively involved. Rosie was honored that day. They were involved in all these learning opportunities. And it has led to us also hiring tribal elders to teach since time immemorial. There's a 3-week camp program at Camp Moran, and also after-school learning sessions, which we are very happy to have Rosie teach. And then Latinx Voices and Visions leaders. Karina is here, one who has done so much with Children's Day and El Dia de los Muertos coming up in November. You should be here for it. They've initiated a lot of cultural events, but also it has led to new food businesses like Belén with Patitio Sweets. And also led to the Resource Center hiring 5 Spanish-speaking community health workers. They've got 14 community advisors, and they are doing all these amazing programs and activities for our community. And it has launched a whole number of bilingual programs that the Resource Center is doing now, so that everything is dually in English and language from the beginning, planned, implemented, and done. And then lastly, youth leadership. LIFRC obtained a minor work permit so that we can hire youth for a variety of roles, because providing job opportunities is so important. That includes advisory councils, teaching the Character Strong curriculum, the community CPR trainings, after-school programs. We know it's so important to foster these future change makers. There's so much energy. Like a group of these, 27 to 50 youth, there's so much energy. You can feel it. It's such an amazing opportunity and kind of inspires us all. The key to all this work is growing and thriving together. As you can see, it has a huge ripple effect. We don't always know where it's leading us again, but I do believe that when we open our heart and minds together, then one opportunity leads to another and another and another. It's very exciting. It's kind of exciting not knowing where you're going sometimes, but know that these beautiful things are going to come out of it. And again, it's just so important that we all learn about each other, celebrate and honor all of the different cultures, innovate and grow stronger together. And together, I truly believe that we're building a better future for everyone. And I can't say enough what my deep, heartfelt gratitude to everyone here is, because you make all of that possible. So thank you.
Okay, I'm doing this because I'm so tall. So the Lopez community has just been enormously generous, and we're donating to many people are donating to many different campaigns and to different Lopez organizations this year. We're very aware of that. Tonight, as we celebrate the Resource Center, I want to emphasize how crucial your support is. Every dollar you contribute directly helps our Lopez neighbors, friends, and family. I'm proud to share that the Resource Center has raised already $225,000 this year, which is huge. That is huge. Thank you so much. We do need an additional $265,000 to fully support our community and to continue our vital work, which you've seen tonight. A special thank you to tonight's sponsors for their advance donations. You'll see their names are here. And for those considering giving, you'll find envelopes on your table. As you plan your year-end giving, just please keep the Resource Center in mind. We have links online on LIFRC.org. There are links online. You can go there as well for your year-end giving. So please remember all the great work that we're doing, and this is all grassroots and led by the community. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Appreciate that. Okay, and now we'll start the program. Really.
We are very, very blessed to have Akaya Winwood with us tonight. I had the honor of spending some time with her yesterday, and her wife Kim, and that was very precious. And just, thank you for all you do to believe in others. Akaya Winwood facilitates transformation. She advises, trains, and consults us on how change happens individually, organizationally, and societally. She is on the faculty for the Just Economy Institute, is lead advisor for Third Act, and is founder of the New Universal Wisdom and Leadership Institute, which centers human wisdom in the wisdom of brown women. She was president of Rockwood Leadership Institute for many years and directs the Growing Roots Fund, which supports young women, finance and philanthropic learning, and leadership based in generosity and interconnectedness. Akaya received the 2020 Vision Award from Middlebury College, was one of Conscious Company's 30s World-Changing Woman of 2018, and has been a featured speaker at the Stanford Social Innovation Institute, the Aspen Institute, and the New Zealand Philanthropy Summit conferences. She is an Ella Award recipient from the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights and served on the Alameda County Human Rights Commission. Akaya is deeply committed to working for a fair and just, equitable global society while infusing a sense of purpose, delight, and wonder into everything we'll do. You will definitely notice that right away. Akaya co-authored Leading with Joy, Practices for Uncertain Times, which was recently published in October 22. She lives in Oakland, California, where she reads science fiction, makes sauerkraut, and relishes growing enormous squashes in her garden.
Well, how you doing? Right? I hope you don't mind, but I can't work and wear shoes at the same time. And this is really not work, but I can't do much with shoes on, so you just have to live with it. Maybe we can all put our feet on the ground and take a breath. And if you're comfortable, I'll invite you to close your eyes or bring your attention to soft focus. And notice you. And notice that through your feet on the ground, it connects you to the soil and the mycelial network. And notice that the blood in your veins is the same as the water. And notice that the heat on your skin is the same as the sun and the fire. And notice that the breath that you take is the same as the wind, and that our bones are the same as the earth. And they are always connected, always, even when we forget. So notice what it feels like to be connected to all life on this island, in this ocean, on this magnificent planet. And take a breath. And take another. They haven't managed to make us pay for it yet, so let's take another breath. I am so fortunate to be joined by two magnificent women, Meredith and Ruby. Now, I've just met them recently, and already they're among my favorite people on the planet, so they're just remarkable. And I want to thank you for saying yes to this. Here's how we're going to do this. They have no idea what I'm going to ask them. These are what I call cross-generation emergent wisdom conversations. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to invite you to join us in a minute, but what in talking with them recently, I've compiled a series of questions that I'll ask, and then we'll have some conversation, and it will not be because they've been preparing, it's because this is what emergent wisdom looks and sounds like. So you'll notice there will be pauses. And in those pauses, I'm going to invite you, the listeners, to ask yourself, well, how would I answer that? And that way it becomes a call and response in some ways, right? And they're not doing it just by themselves. But before we begin, I want you to turn to another human near you, maybe one human or two, no more than two, and say, hey, how you doing? Just do that now. Okay. So this is going to be your partner for the evening, right? How fortunate are you, right? Like, I got the best partner in the room. And so I'll ask you every once in a while, I may ask a question of you to turn to a partner and say a few things. But I'm going to put you on the spot. These folks probably know some of you, because does everybody on this island know everybody, it seems like? Oh my goodness. And we're walking through the farmer's market, and people are like, hi, I'm going, we don't know you. And she's like, yeah, that's how y'all are, so all right. I appreciate that. But for folks who don't know who you are, the one thing that you love best about you. So say your name and your generation, and the one thing that you love best about you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ruby. I'm a Gen Z. I'm 17. And the thing that I love best about myself is my ability to find a home wherever I go.
I'm Meredith. I'm a millennial, and I'm 42. And I love how much I love being a good friend and making friends, and yeah.
And I'm Akaya, and I'm a boomer. Right? Yeah, I noticed there might be a few of us in this room. Right, well, that's not a bad thing either, right? He said less and less, and I said, okay. And what I love about me is I walk through the world with welcome. Yeah. So I want you to turn to your partner. Turn to your partner. Don't pretend like you don't have one. And I want you to tell your partner, shh. I want you to tell your partner what you love best about you. What you love best about you. Go. All right. So I want you to remember what your partner said to you. Really, I want you to remember, because sometimes we forget to remember what we love about ourselves. And so to have somebody say, I know what you're worth. I appreciate who you are. That's important. We can do that for one another. But let's talk about joy. So I believe we are in a pivotal moment in our world. We've been approaching this time for since there have been humans, right? And what will happen in the next 5 to 6 years will have a lot to do with what happens in terms of climate or democracy or the well-being of our planet. These next 5 or 6 years are very pivotal. And how we go about it, I believe, is as important as what we do. So, we can put on our mighty minds, our mighty brains, and make strategic plans, and don't get me started on strategic plans. But we can use our mighty minds and forget our hearts. I think it's going to be important for us to remember to bring joy into the next 5 to 6 years. So when I say the word joy, what does that mean to you?
I feel like for me, joy is that feeling of, it's not like elation, which comes and then goes away very briefly, but it's that feeling of like calmness and kind of like inner peace, where you know where you are, you know like what is around you in terms of people, and like that just sense of belonging almost in the world, like just feeling comfortable where you are. I think that's joy to me.
I agree with that. I was thinking it feels like, yeah, like being fully aware and being in the moment, kind of, you know, that's a big piece of joy, and like being able to help someone else too, I think is a big part of what like completes joy for me. Like being able to really see someone else because you're fully in the moment, you know?
Yeah, I really think that joy is a practice. You know, I appreciate your distinguishing it from elation, right? Because elation passes, right? Or happiness, and those are all good things. However, I find that when I'm in a place of joy, it's almost the other side of grief, where it's centered in my body, right? That when I'm feeling joyful, my body's involved in that, right? Or when I'm grieving, my body is involved in that. Whereas I can think my way out of sadness or think my way out of happiness because it's about a story, right? So practicing joy and making a commitment to it, I think is important, particularly as leaders, right? So, you know, when I think about the hierarchical, controlling nature of the world, it's not really interested in a bunch of joyful people. In fact, joy can be transgressive if we think about it, right? So, to choose joy is to interrupt the order of things as under patriarchy and white supremacy and all the things like that, controlling systems. Why would we opt for joy? What they said.
I think it's the only way out of late-stage capitalism. It's the only way, because the sadder you are, the less help you are to anyone. You know, we have to learn to laugh at where we are and move forward and not become complacent in, you know, and not give up. You know, I mean, the joy, you can't give up if you have joy, you know? And yeah. That's what I think.
Thank you. Okay, my microphone's not working currently, but I think, like she was saying, you know, you keep moving forward when you have joy. Yes, the way society functions in this moment may not exactly promote it, but I think you find these little areas, like little societies in these places that they live with joy. Their goal is joy, and everyone just has a much better quality of life. Like they're much more comfortable where they are, they're much more connected with people. And I don't see why you wouldn't want that. That's why wouldn't you want to lead with joy, like to go forward with joy? That's my question. Why wouldn't you?
Well, I don't know, but right? That's such a good question. Well, let's think about it. You know, again, I think it's really hard for a system of control to control joyous people. Right? Okay. Yeah, because if I'm all happy and joyful, you're going to have to chase me down. Yeah. Right? And I think that so many peoples under repressive systems, when we can retain our joy, we are much more resilient and able to withstand the hard times. One of the things, I love to have these cross-generation conversations because I can guarantee you that the context in which Ruby is growing into her adulthood is phenomenally different than the context in which I grew up. So when I was 17, things were very binary. There were right and there were wrong. We were good, we were bad. We were black, we were white. We were male, we were female. And everything was very ordered. I don't know if anybody else grew up in that system, perhaps, right? It's not that way anymore. And so, I shouldn't tell this story, but I'm going to. Yeah, you know what story I'm going to tell. Okay, you haven't heard it yet. I was doing a cross-gen conversation up on Cortez a couple of years ago, and it was a great conversation. It was all very warm and lovely, and it was, you know, all the things. And then we had lunch. So here I am at lunch, and one of us is 17, one of us is 33, one is 44, and there's me at 66 then. And they started talking about sexuality. And I'm just listening. And all of a sudden, one of my friends there said, "Oh, I was invited to a birthday party for a friend of mine who is asexual and non-binary. And they wanted to have sensory flagellation for their birthday present." And here's me. Well, you know, so here I am going sensory flagellation. Oh, and then we have to go non-binary, and then there's the part about the asexuality. Okay, I'm tracking. And they said, yeah, so they wanted to be flagellated with stinging nettle and rosemary. Okay, so my face, I'm trying not to look like you. I'm trying to, be thoughtful. And they began to talk about what it was and the whole thing. And I'm listening and taking a lot of deep breaths and going, oh, And I have rosemary in my backyard. I've never been able to see it the same way since. But that's another issue. So we get to the end of the conversation, and I said, you know, thank you so much for sharing that with me. It's very different from how I understand things. And I think I'm pretty sophisticated, right? I was in the 70s, I marched in the first queer parades, all the things. I'm thinking I'm sophisticated, and I'm going, I have no clue what's going on here. And they said to me, thank you for listening. And I said, well, okay, why did you thank me? And they said, because we can't tell our elders these kinds of things. And I found myself saying, oh, we can't talk about something as generic, well, as it were, as fundamental as sexuality, what else aren't we talking about cross generations? So I've been hosting these cross-gen conversations because we need to hear from one another. Because the set of assumptions in which I grew up are very different from the set of assumptions in which you grew up. So, you all have very different frames than I do, and even different from each other, right? A number in talking with a number of younger folks, I've said, oh, maybe it's time for people my age to step aside and just get out of the way. And I've heard, no, don't step aside. We don't want you to step aside. We want you to step beside us. You have a different role to play in the world now. So I'm asking you, given all of the differences that we may or may not have been, talked about here, what do you ask of us, those of us who are elders now?
I mean, for guidance, you may not know everything. You may not have experienced everything because the world is changing so quickly, but just having people there who have a bit more worldly experience than you is a really comforting idea. I think of my mom sitting there. I talk to her about everything. I don't know where I would be without her. And having someone that I know will be there for me no matter what, who loves me no matter what, and will guide me through that is really important. And so thank you for that.
I think you said it. I think listening to us, and I think on our side too, not feeling like we can't talk to you. You know, I think if I could tell anyone, or if I wish I could have a bunch of younger people here too to say that to, that we should talk to you and you should talk to us. You know, and that there doesn't have to be this huge separation because. And don't worry so much about pronouns. They're okay. It'll be okay. It'll be okay.
Yeah, those pronouns things. Yeah, you know, I've had to adapt a lot and change my language and how I think about things because that's not how we did it back then. You know, and the challenge so often for folks, I have to get out of my, no, that's not how we do that. You don't, that's not what Rosemary's for, no. And, I've never told that story in public. I probably shouldn't have, but nonetheless. But now it might be. Right? And so what am I missing because of the very limited frame of being raised in the 50s and 60s? Right? And what are you able to know and experience that it's unknown to me? So if we're lucky, we get old. We grow older. And not everyone becomes an elder. I'm going to ask you to turn to your partner. What's the difference between an old person and an elder?
It's nice. It's not one of the hard ones.
You go first.
Okay.
I still need a moment. I'll need a moment to think about it.
All right. So what is the difference?
I think for me the difference is an elder is someone who holds all they've learned and imparts that wisdom to the younger generations while also listening and allowing for the world to change around them.
Yes, for me it's the same. Someone who is willing to share what they've learned, but also own up to failures, to mistakes, and to talk about how they learned from them, how they grew from them, and like you said, to change with the world, I think. Maybe not just allow the world to change, but to change with the world, to take in new things and adapt and learn from those, and to not just stay stagnant in one place, refusing to move on from something.
I've never done anything like that before. It's tough, right? what would you ask of us?
I think just trying, you know? You just have to put a little bit out there just to accept a little bit. You don't need to be perfect to, like, you know, be an elder in any way. I think perfection is a ridiculous idea that we've invented to just try to keep going. We're never going to reach it. But I think just being willing to try, you know, to grow with things, I think that's what I ask.
Make friends with people that aren't your same age, because I love being friends with people that are not my same age. I don't care if they're younger or older. It's so rich. There's so much more to talk about. So come say hi.
I love that. Yeah, me too. So don't give up on us. Seriously, don't. Right? Because we're having to shift in a very shifting world. You know, these differences of that, you know, age and class and race and all these things that I, in my generation, was taught. Oh, those are very discrete things. Right? And I'm this age, I'm this gender, I'm this race, and the mix is getting very different now. How can we build bridges of connection now, and what does joy have to do with it?
I think something I'm really excited about right now, which I hinted on earlier, is non-binary people and transgender people, and one of the reasons that I feel that way is that it feels like moving away from these boxes we've all put ourselves in intentionally, and not to say that it's, you know, you can be a feminist and be a woman, and that's great, you know, and I think people feel threatened by non-binary people, but in the end, it's an evolution that is happening that's actually really exciting, where some of these lines and these boxes are getting blurred and getting less important, and people are just being people. Yeah. Answer the question.
It all answers the question, so don't worry about that.
I think you connect, like to build bridges, you connect over the mundane, you know? You don't connect over these massive differences in this and that. You connect over little hobbies you have, you know, like if you like crocheting, you can connect with someone who likes that. If you like painting, if you like a specific type of music, you connect over those things, like the little things that make us human. And that's how you eventually create bigger bridges, and then eventually you get to a point where those massive differences you have don't really matter anymore. They just bring enrichment to your connection, different perspectives of life.
And what you're talking about, both of you, requires a lot of courage, right? That's just real talk. That it's not easy to say, oh, this is how I've been taught. Let me set that aside for a moment and listen to something that makes me a little or a lot uncomfortable. Right? So yeah. When I was born in 1956, who my mother could have imagined I could have been and who I am now are two entirely separate things, right? Because back then, a black infant girl, I could have been a secretary or a nurse or a teacher or a housekeeper, but not a lot more than that. There's no way my mother could have imagined me sitting here talking with you all, right? With the two wonderful humans that you are. And in fact, when I was born, I would not, so my spice, and I call her, we don't love the word wife, and we don't love the word spouse, so we call each other our spice. Right? She's sitting here going, why, oh my God, what are you doing? My spice, Kim here, our relationship would have been illegal on so many levels. And yet, in one generation, that would be mine, in one lifetime, that would be mine. We've come from, I could be a nurse or a housekeeper, I could not have a partner like Kim, to us sitting here having this conversation. That's a lot of change in a short amount of time. When you think about what might be possible when you're my age, so for you, that's 50 more years. For you, that's 20. That's 42. I'm 68, so 26. Thank you. Right. So 26 years, 50 years. Imagine. I really want you to close your eyes and imagine yourself my age. And you're an elder. Imagine your skin. Imagine where you might be living. What are humans doing? What does the natural world look like? Really imagine yourself. And now bring yourself back here. What did you see?
I mean, my mind jumps to space and to other planets and like things like that, exploration. But also, hopefully, in this, I'm an optimist, so hopefully we have brought our climate back to how it's meant to be. We've fixed the things we have done to it. We've hopefully, stopped global warming, or at least for the most part. And then I think of space exploration, like other planets, things like that. And maybe that's too futuristic, but you never know. So.
I feel like I struggled because I just started thinking about this apocalyptic world where, we're all riding around on motorcycles and, I don't know, in the desert. But then I was like, no, I'm not going to imagine that. That's a terrible plan. So I switched, and I was like, imagine if it all goes well, let's say, the leadership, we can look past our piles of money that we're all sitting on top of and instead say, there won't be anywhere to live if we keep on using fossil fuels. And so anyway, I imagined a world in which we used all of this tremendous growth with technology and just all the innovation that is happening so quickly to stop climate change. And then I thought, and we stopped hoarding all the wealth because we thought, you know what, we don't need that much. We can all have enough food and we can all have shelter. And so, and then I thought, and then we can all do art and we can all be really happy, and I will be old and happy and live in that world, so.
We can all get tattoos, yes. Yes.
Tattoos.
So I've been asking this question a lot lately, over the last several years, to people in generations younger than mine. What do you imagine when you're elders? Where are you living? What are humans doing? What does the natural world look like? And I'm getting a consistent story. What you heard tonight is what I'm hearing consistently. And I'm hearing it all over the world, because that's where my connections are. And these are people who range in age from 17 to 50. And they're saying things like, oh, we're exploring things. We've figured out the climate stuff. We're in good relationship with the planet. We've figured out that it doesn't matter that you hoard resources because there's enough for everybody. And I took a risk to ask this here, but I took a risk because it is a lot of young ones are seeing the same things. Which means, if they're right, those of us, there are many of us in this room, will see the beginnings of that. And I think we're almost there. I think we're almost there. And when I look at what's happening both on the national stage politically, which I'm not going to, anyway, and not just here in the US, when I think about what the young folks are asking of the world, I think we're in pretty good shape, or will be. So let's risk joy. Okay, now we've been out. I mean, I love you, girl. You took us all the way out into the universe. But let's come back to Lopez Island. What's the best thing about being here? Wait, you know what? I got a little time. Turn to your partner. And here's the question. What's the best thing about Lopez Island? And what would you like to see happen here that isn't happening yet? Turn to your partner. All right. What do you love about Lopez Island, and what would you like to see happen here?
I think that anyone that comes to Lopez to visit can talk to you kind of about this magic draw Lopez has. My dad, he doesn't live here, but he still talks about it, how amazing Lopez is and how much he just loves it. And I think so much of that comes from the people. We're the friendly island for a reason. We have our little wave. I think that just the genuine love for this place that people have, that they then share with all the people surrounding them. Like you talked about how at the farmer's market, people are just like, hi, they don't even know you, but they're saying hi. I think that energy that Lopez has is what I love most about it. And I need some more time to think about what needs to happen next. Right. So,
I think what I love most about Lopez is the community, the way that we hold each other and support each other. And, if somebody needs something, the community comes together and supports that person. And the Family Resource Center is like a reverberation of that. It's this organization that is holding our whole community and thinking about how to help the community. And of course, Lopez would have this organization, that's this core value. And I love that you can be, at a party, you can see a 15-year-old and a 65-year-old, and they're sitting there in this great conversation, and you're like, yeah, that's totally normal for Lopez, And it's really a cool place for that, And I think I would like to see our community hold the school more, because the school needs our help. Yeah, they do. And we have a lot to give, and we have a lot of wisdom, and we can help the school, and I know that we will. Yeah.
I'll piggyback off of that. I'm a student at the Lopez Island School. I love it. It's a great place, but they are struggling, you know? We have limited staff, which, you know, that's gonna happen on a small island, but we don't have the ability to sustain like a larger staff, which means there's less opportunities for students. There's more limited classes. And we have this wonderful administration and school board who are doing their very best to solve these issues, but they can't do it on their own. They need help from outside sources. Dr. Martin, who's sitting in the audience, she's incredible. And I mean, all the students, like on the ASB, I'm part of the student government, we all say, we don't know where we would be without her. We don't know where we would be without her administration. But like you said, they do need help. They do need that community support.
And may you get it. So let's bring it even more, you brought it in here, a little more granular. Let's talk about Family Resource Center. They're doing a lot, right? I was so impressed with what they're up to, right? Or y'all are up to. What would you imagine if there were no monetary constraints? What would you imagine? What's the biggest gift of the FRC? And what would you imagine for them without financial constraint? Biggest gift.
The biggest gift that they already
They're already bringing.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Here, let's do it this way. Turn to your partners, because while they're thinking, what's the biggest gift of Family Resource Center? I know you care about them, otherwise you wouldn't freaking be here. So turn to your partner. What's the biggest gift they offer, and what would you love to see what happen if they had no financial constraints? Turn to your partner. Very much. I turned it there, so it's more just I appreciate that. All right. Now, this is not to put any extra stress on Barbara and the team. It's like, oh, you know what? You should be doing this and this and this and this. That's not what we're doing here. But I do want to hear. So, what's the biggest gift, and what do you imagine?
My child was part of the early reading program, and we got to go to the Family Resource Center on Wednesday and get read a book and given a book and fed dinner on Wednesday for 2 months, and play related to the book, and it was just totally amazing. Like yeah. So yeah, super grateful to them. And I think what I would really love is for them to get the older community folks and the little preschoolers together somehow, because I just think it would embody what Lopez is all about, and I think it would be like the Hamlet and the preschool, and do something with them all together, because I know it's really good for both of those communities to be together, but it's also notoriously segregated, so I think that would be really cool. Yeah, adopt a grandchild, exactly.
My mind just keeps jumping to the school, keep them afloat in some way. It's where I spend the majority of my time, during the year, and it's a really important place to community members. I mean, it's what, families can't exist here without it. So I think just helping sustain that and, eventually growing into that, helping support new programs and things like that, like La Cima, which is now La Ruya, I think. For Latinx students, I have so many friends who love that program because it, allows them to feel more centered in their place. So growing programs like that allow students to feel more welcome in communities will bring more students, bring more families to the island, and growing our community in a way that's productive for us and happy,
Joyful, as it were.
Yes, joyful. That's the word I'm looking for.
So we're coming to the end of our conversation. And my next talk is next month at the UN Summit for the Future. And we'll be talking about, it'll be a cross-gen conversation about sharing power across generations. If you want me to bring something to that conversation as it pertains to joy, what would you want me to tell them? Your last thoughts on joy.
I keep coming back to our conversation yesterday where we were talking about how protests used to be more joyful in the 60s and 70s, and then in the 80s they got kind of militant, like militarized, where it became like it used to be songs and now it's marches, and I think I want to see change come with joy, protests come with joy, How can we say no with joy? Like say, we want to do this now, Yeah, that's what.
I think we talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but just choose joy. It's not easy to choose that all the time. You have to genuinely commit to it. But I think you have to commit to it if you want change to occur in a good way. You have to commit to it. So I think just choose joy.
Amen. So I always end with appreciations. Appreciations are three things. They are brief, they are true, and they're from the heart. They're not flattery. And so I'm going to ask you to turn to your partner, and each of you get an appreciation. You appreciate the person you've been speaking with, and they'll appreciate you back. They are brief, they are true, and they are from the heart. Right? Let me give you an example of what they are. I could say, Meredith, I just love your tattoos. They're just fabulous. That's not an appreciation. That tells me that she tells her that I love her tattoos, which I do, and I've actually talked to her about them. But if I were to say, Meredith, I appreciate how you didn't know you were going to say yes to this a week ago, and you said yes. And that took courage, and I so appreciate how you showed up here. Both are true. I love her tattoos, and I love how she showed up here. The second is an appreciation. Turn to your partner. Give them an appreciation and get one back. Don't do that with each other. All right. If you didn't get finished, if you weren't completed with this, make sure you give and get your appreciation before we leave tonight. You can take it home with you. You can put it in your pocket. I want to appreciate Ruby, too. When I got off the phone, we got off the Zoom call about a month ago, I went, oh my goodness, what a brilliant human. And when I think about what you're going to be doing in 50 years, And unfortunately, I won't be here to see that. But when I imagine, the world is already in a better place. So y'all, let's choose joy. And it takes practice because a lot of us didn't get that as part of our growing up stuff. So it means we have to adjust some things and do things differently, and we can't do it by ourselves. We're going to need each other. And sometimes when I forget to be joyful, and that happens a lot, especially under some of the mess that's happened over the last, never mind, my spice will say, "You're not being joyful." And sometimes I have to say, "I'm not joyful here." But she reminds me that I can choose it. So let's remind each other that we can choose it, not in a "you can choose joy" kind of way, not that. How well do I know my generation, right? Right? But in a let us support each other in becoming a joyful island, a joyful state, a joyful country, a joyful world, a joyful planet. Thank you for having us tonight.